Well, what's happening again? It is Brandon coming to you. So I have been working on these small canvases with Christmas themed stuff going on, Christmas trees and some snowmen here that I've been doing on these small canvases for basically some local craft shows and things that are going to be sold by the Christmas Sage is the name of the seller. So what we're going to do now is have a quick real-time tutorial look at these. We're going to start with this guy first, this snowman here, just basic snowman scene in the snow itself with a blurred background going on. And then in another video we'll take a look at this fella here who's sitting there basically in the foreground with the sunset going on in the background. So let's take a quick look at this one, real-time tutorial. If you want to paint along with me, not a whole lot going on with this one, should be fairly easy. Let's go do it. Alright, so if you want to paint along with me on this one, feel free to do so. What we have here is a rather small canvas. Okay, there's my hand. So this is a 5x7, not very big. That way it won't take us a whole lot of time to get through this. All I have done at this point is covered the edges a little bit with some blue, black, gray kind of color to just tone up the edges of the canvas itself. That's all I've done. We're going to be using just a plain old 1-inch flat brush kind of deal here to do the background of this. And really what we're looking for from about this point here up is just kind of a blurry background and some winter type colors. So some grayish blue with maybe a little bit of a hint of a dark green, like an evergreen kind of color in there. Then our foreground down here at the bottom is just going to be some snow. We're going to drop a snowman in there. So our background color for the snow is just going to be a little bit of a darker bluish gray color that we'll put the snow highlights on top of. So let's get started with the background. Now the background itself literally is just going to start with really just a mix of some Phthalo Blue, a little bit of permanent black thrown in there, and some white. And I'm going to come in here and basically just drop some of this in just to get some color back here. We're going to say that our horizon is going to be somewhere in there. This particular picture is just going to be of a snowman where the viewer is going to be fairly close in on the snowman, looking at him, so he's going to be the prominent foreground figure, and the background is just going to be basically an out of focus scene of some kind, which would probably be maybe the edge of some woods or something behind this snowman that's back there in the distance. So just get some of this color on there. It can be rather thin like I've got going on right now. It doesn't matter. You can make it thick. We're going to come back in here with a couple of different layers of some other colors to do some things. So that is just going to get us started in the right direction. So now with the same brush, I'm going to grab a little bit of a sap green color just to add a little bit of that, what might be a winter green or an evergreen type color in the winter. And we're just going to come in here and drop that color in on the canvas. And again, it doesn't have to be real thick. It can be put on thin. So I've got some water in here on this brush that's thinning things out. And we're going to come back in here and do some other things anyway. So this is literally just getting some color on the canvas. Maybe mash it in there a little bit like that to create some kind of tree texture that could be back there in the background. Okay, now I'm going to go into a little bit more of our phthalo blue and permanent black with some more titanium white, and we're going to basically create some different values of our gray that's going on back there. So I'm going to come in here with a little bit of darker value of our gray in a few places, and just randomly drop this in. It doesn't really matter how this ends up. Now I'm going to bring in more of the titanium white to lighten the values up. And work that in. Again, just randomly dropping it in there. And you can see why I say now that it didn't matter how thick the coverage of those first layers of paint were going on, because once we get done doing all this, we'll end up with pretty good canvas coverage of paint here. So those early layers, doesn't matter if they're really thin or if they have full coverage or not. Alright, now again I'm going to keep working with the titanium white and lightening up my values of this gray mixture that I've got going on. And I'm basically making just kind of small circular type motions just to kind of fade and blend this. We just are creating what looks like a distant background of some kind, and who knows what's really going on back here. It's probably trees in the distance of some sort, maybe some sky coming through the trees back there. We don't really know, we don't really care, to be honest with you. We just want lots of grays and blues and maybe hints of greens, something that we would see, colors that we would see anyway during winter months outdoors. I'm going to grab a little bit more of our sap green color and drop some of that back in. Just enough to give maybe the impression that there is something back there. Maybe trees that have a little bit of green left on them. All right, that's really about all we need. So now we are going to switch our focus to the snow down here that's along the ground, and to get our background for that, we're really just going to go back into our gray mixture, but we're going to lean a little bit more on the blue side of our gray mixture. So a lot more phthalo blue here than we have permanent black. And let's put this in. Creates a really dark, kind of a slate blue color there. We'll put this along the bottom, and then we will come back in with snow highlights. Make this look like some snow along the ground. Now then, we'll give that a minute or two to dry. And once we let that dry a little bit, I'm looking at it, I think I'm going to come back in and put even a little more blue color in here. So again, this is just leaning a little more on the phthalo blue side of things. Coming forward about like that. Now to start the process of laying snow in, we really just need to grab some titanium white with that phthalo blue mixture that I just put on there, and we'll start back here at the distance with just a little bit lighter value of that same phthalo blue gray that I just put in there. We've just lightened it up here with some titanium white, basically. And as we come forward, we will just continue to lighten our value of it with even more titanium white. Something to that effect. Now we want to give the impression that this foreground here is really close to the viewer, and that the camera angle or whatever our viewing angle is almost looking low to the ground. So now that I get up here to the front end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my titanium white and I'm going to leave more darker area that's visible underneath here to make this look like clumps of snow that has been disturbed a little. As we're making a snowman, you know, you definitely mess up the snow around it. So I'm going to come in here and drop in some highlight, but leaving a good bit of that darker tone underneath still visible. And we can come back in here and manipulate that to our liking once we get everything else in place. Now really it's just a matter of kind of fading this distant snow into the foreground snow. Of course, our snowman's going to be in the middle. And what I really want to start my snowman with is that same darker kind of slate blue color that basically is back there in the distance. So I'm going to take that color now and I'm just going to blob in here our basic snowman shape. So we've got a big lower portion here of a snowman. And then we have a midsection that's going to come in here. And then the head of our snowman be up here at the top. And obviously when you're building an actual snowman, you're not going to get these things perfectly round. So you're not trying to achieve an exact circle here. You're just trying to get something that would look about like what you would produce if you were outside making an actual snowman. So something to that effect. And now while I have that color still pretty fresh on the brush, we're going to come in here and make our shadow color that same value along this foreground. Again, we'll come back and fix our highlights when we're done with all that. It's a good thing about painting. You can always readjust things and mix things up. Now, we're going to say that we have some kind of light source here. Maybe it's a cloudy day out, but wherever the sun is behind the clouds is going to be the direction that the main source of light is. So for our purposes, we're going to say our light is coming from the left-hand side. So we're going to make our brightest highlights of our snowman over here. We'll fade them around to the back, leaving a lot of this darker color on this back side visible. And since our light source is over there, we'll make sure that our shadow is mostly seen over here on the right side. Now all we need for this is, again, to lighten up our values of basically the same color we've been using, adding more titanium white to it. Now I'm going to switch off of this brush and I'm going to move to something a little smaller. It doesn't really matter what you've got, a small angled brush, or I don't even know what I'm going to grab here. This is just a little smaller flat brush, to be honest with you. And I'm going to come in here with a little lighter value of our color and start touching in along this side that our light source is on. And I'm not going for specific full even coverage of this color, because when you pack snow, roll snow, there's all kinds of little things going on in here in terms of what's catching the light. So for right now, I'm just kind of dotting that in, and as my brush loses that paint, loses that color, I'm able to basically naturally create a fade of it or a blend of it here to the back side where it's going to be more shadowed. So I have less paint on the brush here at this point, touching it in on this back side. And you can see right there in just one pass that there's a little bit of the beginning of a fade of color from left to right where we have more highlight on this side. Now we're basically just going to work several layers of that to where we brighten everything up till we get to our finished product. And we'll do the same thing here on the middle body section, and we'll start with the side that our light source is coming from. It's got the most paint on the brush at this point. And then as I work away from that, I will lose paint on the brush. So when I get back here to this other side now, there's not nearly as much paint coming off the brush. It'll create a natural fade. And in this instance, I'm going to have to reload in the brush anyway, because this area is a lot bigger than the head, so I'm going to have to come back in here and load some more on this brush just to make it back across. There we go. And do it one more time on the bottom. Start over here on the side that our light's coming from. And just very randomly blotting in this lighter value. That way when we come back with multiple layers of it, it'll look like some snow that's been packed into a snowman figure. And you won't see as much of this over here on this right side because it's going to be the shadowed side. So when we come back in here with some multiple layers of this, we'll brighten up the left side of our snowman here, but we will pretty much leave this right side alone after this initial layer here. Okay. Now all I'm going to do is come into more titanium white at this point. Start that process over. Brightening up the left side. And losing paint on my brush as I go. And really, you cover up your darker values and your shadows there as much as you want to create a uniform looking snowball. It's really up to you how much of those you want to cover up. And again, do the same thing on each layer below. Start over here, brightening everything up. One more time down here on the bottom. Alright, now I'm going to come in now to almost what is just pure titanium white on my last pass here and really brighten up this left side. And as I come to the right here to fade that color off a little bit, if there's a little bit more on my brush than I want, I can use my finger to kind of rub that in. Get the bottom part of our snowman here the same way. And there we go. We now have basic form of a snowman that is sitting there with the light source coming from the left hand side. While I've got this same value of the snow going, we will come in here and add some areas in this foreground of highlight to make it appear that this is much closer to the viewer. Bring it even right in here with our snowman. Since he is sitting amongst it. And since our snowman is curved, but the ground right over here is not, you don't necessarily have to worry about fading the color the same, obviously. But we will leave a shadow over here to the right side that is a little darker than the rest. Yeah, that basically looks like we have some snow piled up in the foreground. We have a snowman sitting there. Now all we got to do is add a few features to him. So for that, I mean, literally, you don't have to get crazy here and carried away. We're just going to dot in a couple of eyes and a mouth and some buttons on him. And for that, I mean, seriously, I think we can mostly go into just some straight up pure permanent black, maybe a hint of brown with it, something like raw umber. And let's go in here on this guy and give him an eyeball. I mean, who knows what we used here. We could have used rocks or a piece of coal in real life, or you can buy a snowman kit from a store. It's got some plastic stuff you can stick in there. Who knows? We'll say that we used a stick maybe to create his mouth that had a slight upturn to it to create a little bit of a smile. And then we dropped in a couple of things to make buttons on our snowman. Who knows what they are? And let's say that we shoved some sticks in for his arm, so we're going to go into some raw umber here and bring an arm out the side. It's going to be a stick. It's not a perfectly straight stick, but it's close. A little fork in the end of it. Same thing here on the other side. We're going to bring a stick out of there. Now our light source is over here to the left, so I'm going to just ever so slightly highlight that left-handed stick over there, just grabbing a little bit of our titanium white to lighten up the value there, and just touch a little bit of highlight on that side, maybe out here on the end of this one. And let's give him a carrot for a nose, so we're gonna go into maybe some yellow ochre, a little bit of permanent red to create a little dark orange kind of color. And our snowman is basically looking at us, so this carrot's not going to be, it's going to be pointing out towards us a little bit, and we'll say that it is pointing to the left a little bit. So let's make it bigger at the base and drop it out to the left just a tad. And to make that look a little more three-dimensional, we're going to drop a little bit of raw umber into that mix to darken that up and try to touch that darker color just towards the base on the right side. Doesn't take a lot. And then we will add a little bit of titanium white to that mix of that orange color, just to highlight over here on the left corner. It's not a bunch, but it's just enough if you're looking at it in real life that suggests that that is indeed a three-dimensional carrot object pointing out at us. It's going back into the distance there. Now, to add a little bit of pop of color to this snowman, we're going to give him a red scarf, and I'm going to basically just use some permanent red A little bit of raw umber to darken it up a tad. Shaded areas of this scarf, especially on the right side where our light source is not coming from. But I will use this color all the way around. So this is just a dark red created with some permanent red and some raw umber. And then we will come back and highlight over it, especially over here on the left side where our light source is coming from. Now over here on the right, I think we'll just leave it that same color that I'm dropping in now. And let's say his scarf has a piece that drops down from underneath right down in here. Maybe has a little frazzled end to it. And then maybe the other portion of that is coming down over here on the side. Something about like this. Now, we will just lighten up our, go back into the permanent red. And work just a little touch of titanium white into that. Create a little bit of a highlight for this left side. Bring it down. And there we are. So again, not a whole lot to that, but that gives us a nice snowman sitting there. We're going to drop a signature on this and say that we have ourselves a finished product. Pretty quick and easy. There we go. So there is a quick, simple snowman project. Again, on a 5x7 canvas. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Maybe painted along with it and you got yourself a nice little snowman you can use now. I'm pretty happy with that result. So we're going to call this one a wrap. We'll catch you guys next time around.